Welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Julie Baranek, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving CEOs work smarter, not harder, with gorgeous insights to scale to seven figures and beyond. And I'm here today with my friend Liz Toombs. Hey, Liz.
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful. I am thrilled to have you here today.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I always love conversations around growing a business. I'm kind of a nerd like that.
Absolutely. No, me too. I love digging in. So, first and foremost, where in the world are you?
I am based out of Lexington, Kentucky.
Awesome. Awesome. So, you are not all that far from me, but over that direction.
Yes, yeah, we're on the eastern side of the country here. Yep.
Yeah. And for people that have not had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell us just a little bit about what you do with your business?
Yeah, I'd love to. So my company is called PDR Interiors, and we are an interior decorating firm. And our main focus is sorority houses, so Greek houses on college campuses all over the country. And then we also do residential and light commercial work as well. We have a really great repeat clientele base, and yeah, so we get a little bit of everything, I guess, in that way.
Fabulous. So where do you help people with specifically in the process? Like, is it, start to finish or really, paint that picture? What do you do for them?
Yes. So, especially our Greek clients, it's start to finish. So, that could mean they call us and they say, hey, we have a room that's just looking really run down. We want to update it. And so then my team comes in, assesses based on budget and timeline. We make our selections, our recommendations, present that, and we see it through to the finish line. On the bigger scale, it could be a new construction for one of these houses, or even just a major remodel. We do everything from finish selections, so like your paint, your plumbing fixtures, flooring, those are finishes, to the furnishings like rugs, furniture, window treatments, all of those just finishing touches, I guess, if you will. And then the same is true for our residential clients, although as you can imagine, and I know too, as a homeowner, you don't typically come in and do the entire house at once. You usually work in phases.
Right.
And I advise my clients to do that because you need some small wins along the way to have the stamina to complete the house. And so get a room finished, recover for a minute, and then move on to the next room. That's usually how we work with our residential folks.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want your whole house upside down at the same time because that just will
Yeah,
drive you
no.
crazy.
Yeah, it makes you nuts if you're trying to live in it and you're trying to fix
Yeah.
it. Or if you just do, one little thing over in this room, one little thing over in that room, you just start to feel like you're not really accomplishing
Yeah.
anything. You're just running in circles. And so by focusing in on one room and getting it all fixed up the way that you want, then you can be like, okay, this looks great. I want to make sure we can achieve that over in this next space.
Totally. No, I can definitely see that. So I am lucky enough that my husband is a fabulous sense of design. I don't know if you
Ah.
can tell it by here, but for those that are not, like, what do you help them? Like, or what do you tell them when they're struggling with, the sense of style or where to start or really, the direction to head?
Yeah. So I think that we always want to just put some kind of label on our design style, like I am traditional or I am Tuscan. And
Yeah.
really, it's not that simple, I guess. So what I try to do is ask a lot of questions and just pull insights out of what the clients are telling me. I just say, I want to get inside your head. I want to understand the things that you like. And frankly, sometimes it's easier when I understand what they don't like and what they want to avoid, because then I just know these are absolute no's. Anything in this range is a can't do that. And then that gives me and my team a path to follow to start making suggestions and recommendations for them. So that's what we try to do, and not ever make anybody feel like they have to put a label on it, or it has to be very specific, coastal, grand millennial, whatever it is. The magazines like to give the labels to it, and it's easy to do that, and you can conjure up an image in your head. But the reality is we're all a little bit more eclectic and collected than
Right.
that. We have stories, we have lives, and that's what I like to do. Is if somebody's struggling with how to put their space together, I want to see what things make them them. Are you really into music? Do you love to travel? Do you pick up artwork when you're traveling and little trinkets? What kinds of things are conversation starters in your home? And then let's start to build a space that supports that. And then you're comfortable in your space.
100%. Yeah. And I remember when I was building my house years ago that, it's easy to kind of back yourself into a corner by picking a style. And then it's like, wait, what does that mean? And really, does that align to my personality? And like I totally, hear what you're saying with that. So it sounds like, you try to really reflect their personality in their style. And what are, kind of the latest trends that you're seeing, or what are you seeing that people are pulling into their houses?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We've been on this gray color palette for quite a while. So we're on
Yeah.
the tail end of that. And so things are really swinging back to some warmer tones, specifically beiges. And I know you could get somebody with a really strong opinion one way or the other on that, but beiges are definitely coming back. If you're someone who still loves gray, grayish is your friend because it's color tones that could go more gray or more beige, depending on what other colors are in the vicinity of it. I'm also seeing flooring, specifically like wood flooring. We're going a lot lighter in tone. So most of the projects I'm working on right now, if they're refinishing the wood floors, we're doing them in a natural finish, actually very similar to what I can see in your background. Also the whitewash, if you are someone that loves that coastal beachy look, more of a whitewash look is very popular right now, as opposed to just doing like we had ebony that was so popular for a while in our flooring. And then even just like darker walnut wood tones, we're swinging back the other way a little bit. So
Awesome. And, you know, for people that are struggling with what they have existing, like in our house, you know, we had tile floor throughout and it's not something we picked, but, you know, are there options that you can go on top of it or upgrade or, you know, what do you recommend for people like that?
that question is a little bit more nuanced because it's really case by case, because in some instances, yes, you can go in over existing flooring and put on a new floor. In other instances, you can't. So I would just advise you talk to a flooring professional or a contractor who could tell you correctly, because there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than thinking like, oh yes, I don't have to rip this up, I can save on the labor, and then you slap something down and in 6 months to 2 years it's cracking or it's separating, and then now you have a bigger problem, and it
Right.
turns out everything has to come out anyway. But yes, like you definitely have some solutions. Tile, unfortunately, is one of the most expensive things to rip up and put down. It's pretty labor intensive. But you know, it's a great solution if you have pets or if you're in an area that is very moist or there's a lot of water around. You know, you see it a lot in like Texas, Florida, California. Tile flooring is a really great solution.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you said you're located in Kentucky. Do you only help people in Kentucky or where do your clientele tend to be?
Well, with our Greek clients, we go all over the country, and we've really gotten that process down to a science. And so as a result, we are able to work with residential folks around the country as well. In fact, we've done several homes as a result of contacts we've made through the Greek housing industry. We've done some in Chicago, in Nashville, and just a couple of other places. So that's always really fun. But the bulk of our residential clients are in Lexington, Louisville, or like kind of the central Kentucky area. And that's just strictly because that's where we're located. They know us. When you're working on a residential project, a lot of times the clients like you to be more physically with them, and you're going and you're picking out all your finishes and things like that. Whereas on this grander scale for the Greek clientele, usually my client that I'm dealing with is working at a headquarters based in one town. The project is in another town and then I'm in another. And so we'll have periodic meetings at certain milestones during the project. But you know, overall we're working remotely.
And for those remote arrangements, do you do like, you know, virtual selections or, you know, they can go, you know, peruse online or how do you work that with them?
My team ends up making all of the selection recommendations, and then we can ship them the physical samples. And we also do an online presentation. So it could either be a Zoom meeting like you and I are having, or it could be just, hey, we email over the presentation file and then they send us back their notes and we just go back and forth that way. It depends on the client's preference and also how long we've worked together. Because once you've done, you know, a handful of projects, we typically understand what they're looking for. And we have to have less of those online meetings.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like, you know, obviously in the grander scale of your business, you're very systems oriented and have a lot of systems in place. But what have you seen in, you know, having systems and automation saving time in your business?
Sister, I love a good routine. So, and
Heck
Erica
yeah.
that works with me, she does too. Like we love our systems and our processes. What's funny though, is as a small business owner, and I don't know if you can relate to this, I wasn't always really good at putting it down on paper. It all just lived in my head. So I've worked with a business coach for the past several years now. And last year, one of the things that Erica and I and the rest of the team worked on was getting our, we call them documented workflows. A lot of people call them SOPs, standard operating procedures. We got all of our SOPs down on paper and worked through it. And then we went over it as a team to see okay, Liz put this down. Did she miss anything that she's assuming someone would know, and that we need an outside person to say, hey, you forgot to tell them to do X. So we worked on that over the course of the year. So now we have most of our processes in place. So processes that we have are everything from what you do from the moment that you meet a client to the end of their project, so that you make sure you're following through with communication, certain things that you have to get done to achieve their project. It covers the whole gamut. We have more focused procedures that are, this is how you make a client presentation. This is what the template is. This is what it should look like. So that way, across the team, we have a very consistent look. We've got procedures for how we communicate as a team. We use Slack, and then that way we have all of our communication based on a project, instead of like, oh, did she text me that? Or was it email or this and that? So all of those types of things really work well for us. I mean, it sounds so simple and just elementary, but just having those central points of communication and then having an understanding of this is how we're going to do this really takes a lot off my mind as the business owner, because I'm not always running around thinking, am I the bottleneck of this project? Does so-and-so remember that I told her this? Did I actually tell her that? Or did I just think that I did? And so I found a lot more peace in the workplace after we made sure we got all of those things documented. And I mean, I say all of them. We still will have some times where we're going to do something and then we're like, oh, we never made a workflow for that. And so we take a second and we set aside some time to go ahead and get that down on paper. Systems, I think, are super important. And I think when you hear the word systems, sometimes you assume it has to be something really grandiose and complicated with a whole lot of steps. And that is not necessarily the case. All you're trying to do is just make it repeatable, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you raised some really good points with that, you know, the first was the onboarding process. Like, it sounds like you've got a pretty seamless onboarding process. And a lot of these things tend to be organic in growth as you're building your business and figuring out what the heck you're doing. But it's so important to take that step back and say, okay, what are we doing? Let's get this on paper and then make that process repeatable. Like, that's just how my brain works personally, that I do it the first time, keeping the 50th time in mind, so that it's easy to do it over and over and over and over again.
Yes. And when I started my business back in 2009, all that I really had in mind was not the 50th time doing something. It was just day to day, right? Like
survival.
Can I do some design work? And then now it's like, oh, I actually need some help. I have a team. I'd better instruct them how to do this the way that I would like it done, and our clients expect it to be done. And so that's the funny thing about being a business owner, is I feel like you get into it to practice a craft. And then once you hit that point that, okay, you actually need help, you have to shift into the mindset of business owner and visionary, and not so much that daily doer person.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. And that also, as you mentioned, the communication, it gives you that point of reference to know that you don't have to check your text and your email and your phone, like the 50 different places that you know exactly where to go to, because it is established as a process. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Because I forget stuff all the time. And so then if I'm like, oh, I don't want to bug her or be like, what did you tell me? I'll just be like, I'll go back to the Slack channel. Let me review this so that I understand where we are with this project. And then, you know, it's not so hectic trying to talk to the team.
Or if you're anything like me, you reply to emails or text in your head and never actually hit send. And you're like, oh, wait, I never sent that out.
Yep, all the time.
The intentions were there. The, you know, execution, maybe not so much.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I should wish for this, but maybe it would be great if my brain, like my thoughts, could then just like, you know, be transcribed on paper. And then I could say yes or no. But
give it a couple years. We'll be there.
I feel like it's getting close, huh?
It's a little scary. Yeah. So I'm a bit of a data geek with this, but how have you found that having the right insights into your data has positioned you for success?
It's funny because I am not a data geek. I'm like a total go by gut feeling, that kind of person. But I will say this, there is value in it. And so while I'm not always interested in measuring everything and paying attention to numbers or that type of stuff, I see it with my social media manager. She gives us data on social media. And so we're understanding how our message is being received, if it's being received, and then we tweak it accordingly. I do look every year at what types of projects we're doing, what type of revenue comes in from those projects. And so that's been helpful. And that's how I was able to say to you, you know, 90% of our business is doing sorority houses now. And that has changed greatly over the course of the company being around. So I think just understanding the position that I'm in is what what I get out of data, if that makes sense. And it's not always about like the numbers, how much is in the bank, but it's just
Right.
what we have coming up in the pipeline, what we've done. And even just being able to celebrate our accomplishments because we understand what we have accomplished instead of just moving on to the next project, because I'm really bad about that. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to make it a big deal. This is not a big thing. That was cool, but like, what's next? And so I'm trying to stop more and celebrate it with the team.
Yeah. And those are huge just in giving team recognition and, that morale and the teamwork and all of that to really recognize, and take the time to recognize that that was something pretty cool for the business and the milestones that you get through. So,
Yeah. We do, especially in the summer, because that's our biggest installation season, as you can imagine, for these
Mhm.
sorority houses. So usually end of summer, beginning of fall, we sit down and we just do a debrief meeting over all our projects. And we just talk about what went well, what didn't go well, what we could do better, all of that type of stuff. And so I definitely try to make that a point where we can celebrate the wins, because something always goes right, even if it's only one thing on a project.
Yeah.
Something always goes right, and sometimes they're really big wins. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that before running into the next season.
Yeah, that, and ultimately you want to repeat the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, if you're always rehashing the bad stuff, you
Yep.
forget about all the good stuff that your team is doing. And so that's really important to help repeat that process.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So obviously you're extremely busy in your business and, doing a lot, but how would you encourage business owners to have fun in their business again, to really make it enjoyable?
I think you have to come back to your why. Why did you get into it in the first place? What was your end goal? And then what about that is fun to you? Obviously, for me, the creativity side of things, the getting to see something go from in its appearance, or maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
exist at all because it's new construction, to wow at the end. That's a big why for me. I'm also really big on mentoring young women, specifically college age women, and I do that through the company, and then it also ties back to our work in Greek houses. And so that is fun for me too, to see we create these spaces that are the backdrop for their college life. And so I feel like in a way we're supporting them, just in kind of an under the radar
Right.
manner. So I think you have to find your why and figure out what you think is fun. Like I think singing and dancing around is really fun. So I will end up doing that on projects. I get a little slap happy when we've been working for, 2 or 3 days, getting stuff hung up and getting dirty and placing
Yeah.
it all. And so once it starts to come together, my installers always know that is my tell when it's going well and I'm happy. I like sing a song, or I'll just like a sentence that I would say to you
Yeah.
comes out in song form. And they're like,
That's
all right,
awesome.
it looks good.
All right, we're good. She likes it.
Yeah. So those are the ways that I have fun. So you have to figure out what you like to do.
Yeah. No, and it's individual for each of us. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Which, on that note, actually, but how, you've accomplished so much in your career. How do you define success? What gets you singing?
Oh my gosh. That is something I think is ever changing, because I think when I was younger, I should say, success to me was like, oh, having a house, probably like a big house, and making X number of dollars, and, having this much stuff, or whatever the case may be. And I don't feel that way anymore. So success to me is being happy to get up and go to work every day, being comfortable, having the things that I need, being able to provide for the needs of me and my family, and being able to give back. Like that's a big marker of success for me as well. So it's almost like my success factors have become a little bit more abstract and less specific than what I would have said when I was younger, but they're also significantly less material too,
Yeah.
if you follow.
No, totally. And I hear that a lot from people, that kind of, as you move up that ladder, you really get less and less materialistic. You either partially you've accomplished the goals that you wanted to accomplish, but really you find the deeper meaning behind it and realize that, the monetary value really isn't what drives that satisfaction, and isn't what gets you up in the morning or works those late nights, or, like it's a lot of work. This is not easy.
Yeah, totally. And so I find myself trying to figure out a really good work-life balance. And I know there's a whole discussion on balance versus harmony and all of that. But just what I mean is I just want to make sure, like I have specific preferences for myself about the hours in a day that I commit to work. I prefer not to work on the weekends or the evenings. So those are protected times for me. And so I feel like success is when I'm accomplishing my work, doing it well during those allotted hours that I have for work. And then I can still have all of that time to just be a person and not just be Liz who owns PDR, because I used to be really bad about defining
Yeah.
myself by my profession. And I've had to work over the years to kind of get away from that. And I am Liz away from being the business owner.
Yeah, no, that's a huge step, I think, in the whole identity also, right? Like as you're moving through that business owner to like employee to business owner to CEO, you really have your identity in what you do, but you also need to have your identity separate from that and around your family and, you know, what brings meaning to you.
And I think it's hard to do that because I think even starting in kindergarten, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a marine biologist. Well, maybe I just want to be a person that has
Right.
a husband and a dog. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you, other than the time blocking that you mentioned, but how do you balance business and family life? Like what has worked the best for you?
Um, I used to be pretty rigid with myself about 8 to 5 every day was work. And that still is the case definitely during the busy season. But I also try to give myself some flexibility that if I, have my home is where my business is based. So if I have a little bit of a lull and I just need to get up from the desk and do something, I can go throw some laundry in, or
Right.
I can go take the dog to the vet or the groomer if I need to, and not be like, oh no, this doesn't work because it's on business hours. But like I said, I'm fiercely protective of my evenings and my weekends and really prefer not to do anything work related. That is not always the case. Sometimes there are conferences, sometimes installation travel leaks over into one of those, and then I just try to offset it, either leading up to a trip like that or coming back from, give myself some breathing room to just recoup and get back and not rush back into the office. And part of that is made possible because I have a team that can handle things,
Right.
and because we've put those systems in place that I don't feel like me being gone is holding up progress for our clients. So it's just things I've learned over the years that I've been able to put in place, and now they really work together harmoniously.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I've always found, you know, one of the signs of a good leader is when they can step away and everything doesn't crumble. Like you can't be the linchpin that holds every single thing together, because then you end up being the bottleneck.
Yes, absolutely. But it's terrifying to take that step away and to
Totally.
potentially have somebody mess up, because then you're like, oh God, it's so bad. But failure is a whole different conversation, I think.
Right. And if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think just calm down. I could be a little high strung. Calm down and enjoy the process. Like I'm always looking for what the next step is, or was significantly more, and so just always worried about what the next thing is, and so on. And so I think just roll with it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Fabulous. So looking over the year ahead, you've got lots of things going, obviously, but what are the biggest goals for you ahead?
Oh, I would just love to see a summer of installations where we're still not dealing with supply chain issues. And I think we're getting
Yeah.
closer. 2020 is when the pandemic hit and it all started, but last year was probably our worst year yet of feeling those ripple effects,
Wow.
where it was still labor shortages and supply chain issues, and just logistics were a nightmare in general, trying to get furniture from point A to point B. And so my goal is to be able to successfully install on time this summer, if we can. Beyond that, I think we're just looking at kind of tightening up our processes. I tried not to set any big major goals as far as projects this year, because 2 years ago we created an online course. Last year we really worked hard on our procedures and our processes, and this year what I'm trying to do is assess all of those things and like what's working and where we can tweak them, instead of just moving on to another new goal.
Yeah, for sure. And not to rehash a pain point, but what did you guys do through the whole supply chain thing? Like I remember talking to a friend of mine that has a restaurant and she had no chicken.
Yeah.
You just changed the menu, but like, you know, how did you guys fare through all of that?
Love our clients because they were so incredibly patient and kind. If you know anything about Greek housing, recruitment is a huge driving point for when you need to have your house ready and up and running, and that just wasn't always possible. So otherwise, I joke that we had ulcers all the time because we were dealing with constantly every day something new was coming. It was, we
Yeah.
don't have foam, the fabric is back ordered for 6 months. Something was in a container that fell off in the middle of the ocean. So now they have to remake it
Oh my
overseas
God.
and send it back. And so, I mean, it was literally becoming comical, the things that we would be told, but they were all true. It was all
Right.
happening. And so I think our only saving grace was it was happening all over the world. So every single person we were talking to knew that it was happening.
Right.
And so it wasn't like this is just our industry specific having an issue. Those were just the things that we dealt with, and we just rolled with it. We did everything we could to try to achieve the projects on time for our clients. And we also, I'm a huge information person. And so it doesn't really go over well for you just to say, we're not going to be there on time or X product isn't ready. I need to understand a little bit more from you. Can you talk to me about why,
Right.
or when we can expect it? Because I have to go back and tell someone else this information, and it's not good enough for me to just say it's
Sorry.
not good.
Right.
So I had to do a lot of like coaching to get some information out of the vendors and then relay that information to the client. And so the more information that we had, the easier things would go. But when they would stonewall us and just not tell us what was going on, that's when it got a little hairy.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. And that's incredibly helpful just for the communication. That is, you have the information. Obviously, you can continue building those good relationships with your clients, and then they'll be more understanding, of course. But
yep, absolutely. Because otherwise it feels like something's going on in the background that you're not willing to tell. And then you get a little bit of a bad reputation.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you found the same thing with some of your suppliers, is maybe a change in suppliers, but
yeah, that happened a couple times.
It's tough. So if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
That is a very serious, very good question. I think I would tell them you could do whatever you want if you just put your mind to it. You never know what you're able to accomplish until you try. I was a very shy young girl who didn't like to try things because I thought I might not be good at them. And that is obviously the case, right? We can't all be good at everything, but I didn't like the potential for that embarrassment. And the more that I start to let go of that, the more I see what I am capable of. And now it's just fun to try things. And I probably wouldn't have had the courage to try even the simplest of things had I not gone out there and got started with my business. So I think that's been a really great learning lesson for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it sounds like it's taking you in amazing places of, confidence and in your own career and your business and success. And so that's really amazing.
Yeah.
So how can listeners best support you in your work? Where can they find you online?
Oh, well, I would love for you to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We are PDR Interiors. I have a podcast called Sorority Chat, which is specifically about sorority housing related topics. But then we also talk about some other things like philanthropy and leadership and so on. So if you're someone who comes from the Greek space, that might be something that you would enjoy listening to. But yeah, we would just love to connect with you online and hear your thoughts on any of our projects and answer your design questions.
Awesome. And we'll have all the links below for everyone to check them out. So definitely go check out Liz Toombs, and you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.